The cold metal floor felt like ice against Commander Kim Tae's knees. He had been kneeling in this position for 3 hours now. His hands were tied behind his back with energy restraints that burned his wrists every time he moved. The detention cell on Kepler Station was barely large enough for a human to stand upright. Kim Tae kept his eyes focused on the small window across from him. Through the thick glass he could see the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth. Somewhere out there was home. He wondered if anyone back home knew what was happening to him. He wondered if they would care. The heavy door to his cell slid open with a loud hiss. 2 Imperial guards walked in. They were tall creatures with gray skin and forearms each. Their black uniforms had the golden symbol of the Galactic Empire across the chest. One of them carried a datapad. The other held a weapon. "Prisoner 4471, the first guard said in broken human language. "Time for trial." Kim Tae did not respond. He had been a Navy SEAL for 15 years. He had been trained to survive capture. He had been trained to resist interrogation. But nothing had prepared him for this. Nothing had prepared him for being put on trial by aliens who saw humans as nothing more than animals. The guards pulled him to his feet. His legs were stiff from kneeling for so long. They pushed him forward through the narrow corridors of the station. Other prisoners watched through the bars of their cells. Most were human. All looked defeated. The trial chamber was much larger than Kim Tae expected. It had high ceilings and walls made of some kind of dark stone. At the center was a raised platform where 3 alien judges sat behind a curved desk. The middle judge was the largest. He had scales instead of skin and yellow eyes that seemed to glow in the dim light. This was Governor Vex. Kim Tae had heard the name many times during his capture. Vex was the imperial ruler of this sector. He controlled 12 star systems and millions of beings. To Vex, humans were just another species to be controlled. Around the chamber, more prisoners sat in metal chairs. All were human. All were from the colony Kim Tae had tried to protect. The women and children looked scared. The men looked angry but helpless. They had been forced to watch every trial this week. Today they would watch their defender die. "The prisoner will stand," Governor Vex said. His voice was deep and harsh like grinding metal. Kim Tae was already standing. The guards pushed him forward until he stood directly in front of the judges. He kept his back straight and his chin up. Even here, even now, he would not show fear. "State your name and rank," the judge to the left demanded. This one was thinner than Vex, but just as intimidating. "Commander Kim Tae, United States Navy SEAL," Kim Tae replied clearly. Governor Vex leaned forward. "You have been charged with crimes against Imperial order. You attacked Imperial vessels. You killed Imperial citizens. You interfered with lawful Imperial business. How do you answer these charges?" Kim Tae looked directly into Vex's yellow eyes. "I protected innocent people from slavers." A low growl came from Vex's throat. "The beings you call innocent were being lawfully relocated according to Imperial decree. The beings you call slavers were Imperial officers performing their duties. You committed murder." "I committed justice," Kim Tae said without hesitation. The human prisoners shifted in their seats. Some nodded quietly. Others closed their eyes as if they could not bear to watch what would happen next. The third judge spoke for the first time. This one was different from the others. It had pale blue skin and no visible eyes. When it spoke, its voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. "The prisoner shows no remorse. The prisoner acknowledges his crimes. The prisoner demonstrates the typical human inability to accept proper authority." Vex nodded slowly. "Indeed, this is why your species requires firm guidance. This is why the Empire must take control of human worlds. You cannot govern yourselves. You cannot follow simple laws. You fight when you should submit." Kim Tae thought about the colony he had tried to save. New Busan had been a peaceful settlement. 3,000 Korean families had built farms and schools there. They had hurt no one. They had followed all imperial laws. But the laws had changed without warning. Suddenly their children were to be taken away for education on imperial worlds. Suddenly their best workers were to be relocated to mining operations. Kim Tae had been visiting the colony as part of a diplomatic mission. He was supposed to help negotiate with imperial officials. Instead, he found imperial ships loading human children into cargo holds. He found families being torn apart. He found evidence that the children would never be seen again, so he had acted. He had led the colonists in defending their families. They had fought with farming tools and hunting rifles against advanced imperial weapons. They had won because they were fighting for their children. But the victory had not lasted long. The evidence is clear, Vex announced. The prisoner is guilty of all charges. The sentence is death by hanging. No one in the chamber made a sound. The human prisoners stared at the floor. Some of the women were crying silently. The children did not understand what was happening, but they could feel the fear in the air. Kim Tae felt surprisingly calm. He had always known this mission might be his last. Every SEAL understood that death was part of the job, but he had imagined dying in battle, not as a prisoner in an alien courtroom. "Do you have any final words?" Vex asked. It was not really a question. It was a formality before the execution. Kim Tae looked around the chamber one more time. He looked at his fellow prisoners. He looked at the alien judges who thought they could break human spirit with fear. He looked at the guards who thought humans were weak. Then he spoke in a clear, strong voice that carried to every corner of the chamber. "You think this ends something? You think killing me will make other humans afraid? You think this will make us submit to your empire?" He paused and let his words sink in. "You have no idea what you've just started." Governor Vex's scales seemed to darken. "Take him away." The guards grabbed Kim Tae's arms and pulled him toward a side door. As they dragged him past the human prisoners, he heard one of the children ask her mother, "Is the commander going to be okay?" The mother could not answer. 20 minutes later, Kim Tae stood on a platform in the station's main corridor. A rope hung from a beam above his head. Hundreds of beings had gathered to watch. Most were Imperial citizens who had come to see human defiance punished. But some were other prisoners who had been forced to attend. The noose was placed around his neck. Kim Tae kept his eyes straight ahead. He thought about his home and soul. He thought about his family. He thought about the oath he had taken as a Navy SEAL, to protect and defend. Even here at the end, he had kept that oath. Governor Vex stepped forward to address the crowd. "Let this be a lesson to all who would challenge Imperial authority. This is what happens to those who choose violence over compliance." The platform dropped away beneath Kim Tae's feet, but his final words had already begun their journey home. Admiral Park Jin stood in the command center beneath Seoul, watching the holographic display with growing anger. The footage had arrived through secret channels 3 hours ago. 3 hours since he learned that Commander Kim Tae was dead. 3 hours since everything changed. The recording played again on the main screen. Kim Tae kneeling in chains. The alien judges passing their sentence. The final moments on that platform. Park Jin had watched it 17 times now. Each viewing made his jaw clench tighter. "Sir, President Lee." "So is calling for an emergency meeting," Captain Nam said quietly. She had been Park Jin's aide for 5 years. She had never seen him this angry before. Park Jin nodded without taking his eyes off the screen. "Tell her I'll be there in 10 minutes. And Captain, make sure every department head sees this recording. All of them. Tonight." The presidential bunker was 200 meters below the Blue House. It had been built during the Third World War as a secure command center. Tonight it would serve as the heart of something much bigger. President Lee, So was already seated at the head of the conference table when Park Jin arrived. Around the table sat the most powerful people on Earth. Defense Minister Cho was there. Intelligence Director Yun sat next to him. The heads of all major military branches had flown in from around the world. "Admiral," President Lee So said as Park Jin took his seat, "I assume you've all seen the footage by now." Everyone nodded. The room was unusually quiet. These were people who had dedicated their lives to protecting humanity. They had seen war, death, and tragedy, but this was different. This was one of their own being executed like a common criminal for protecting children. "Intelligence report first," Lee So ordered. Director Yun activated his tablet. Commander Kim Tae was captured 6 days ago during the defense of New Busan Colony. The Imperial forces were attempting to remove human children for what they called educational purposes. Analysis of intercepted communications suggests the children were destined for slave labor operations. Defense Minister Cho leaned forward. "How many colonies are facing similar situations?" 17, confirmed, Yun replied. "Possibly more. The Empire has been gradually increasing pressure on human settlements throughout their territory. They seem to be testing our response." "Well, they got one," Admiral Park Jin said grimly. Kim Tae gave them exactly the response they deserved. President Lee So studied the faces around the table. "The question now is what we do next. The Empire clearly expects us to submit after this display of force. They want us to be afraid. Are we? Asked General Kim, the head of the army. Afraid, I mean. They control thousands of worlds. Their technology is superior to ours. Their fleets outnumber us 1,000 to 1. Admiral Park Jin stood up. General, may I share something with you? He activated the wall display. This is our current military assessment of Imperial forces. Charts and graphs appeared on the screen. Ship counts, troop numbers, technological capabilities. The numbers were overwhelming in the Empire's favor. You're right, Park Jin continued. They have more ships, more soldiers, better weapons. But look at this. He highlighted a section of the analysis. Their forces are spread across 8,000 star systems. They maintain order through fear and intimidation. They haven't fought a real war in over 2 centuries. What are you suggesting? President Lee So asked. I'm suggesting they've forgotten what war actually looks like. They rule over species that submit when threatened. They've never faced an enemy that fights back harder when pushed into a corner. Intelligence Director Yoon nodded slowly. Admiral Park Jin makes a valid point. Our analysis shows that most Imperial subjects surrender immediately when faced with superior force. The Empire's entire strategy depends on quick submission. But we're not most species, Defense Minister Cho added. No, we're not, Admiral Park Jin agreed. We're humans. When someone kills our people, we don't surrender. We get angry. When someone threatens our children, we don't negotiate. We fight, President Lee. So was quiet for a long moment. Everyone in the room knew this decision would change everything. There would be no going back once the words were spoken. Show me our capabilities, she finally said. Admiral Park Jin changed the display. We have 43 major shipyards currently building commercial vessels. We can convert them to military production within 6 months. Our industrial capacity is actually higher than most Imperial worlds because we've had to be self-sufficient. Personnel? Asked General Kim. 12 million active military personnel. 50 million reserves. But more importantly, we have universal military service. Every adult human has basic combat training. Every colony has local defense forces. Defense Minister Cho activated his own tablet. Our technological disadvantage isn't as severe as it appears. We've been studying Imperial technology for decades through trade relationships. Our scientists believe we can develop countermeasures for most of their weapon systems. President Lee. So looked around the table again. This isn't just about military capabilities. This is about who we are as a people. The Empire hanged Commander Kim Tae because he protected children. They did it publicly to send a message. The message they wanted to send was that resistance is futile. What message did they actually send? Asked Director Yoon. That they're monsters, Admiral Park Jin replied immediately. That they see our children as property. That they see us as animals to be controlled. And our response? Lee So asked. The room was silent for 30 seconds. Then Admiral Park Jin spoke in a voice that carried absolute conviction. We show them what humans do to monsters. President Lee. So nodded. Draft the declaration. We go public in 6 hours. Full global broadcast. Every colony, every station, every human settlement in known space. Madam President, General Kim said carefully, once we do this, there's no diplomatic solution. The Empire will see it as a declaration of war. Good, Lee So replied, because that's exactly what it is. 3 hours later, President Lee So stood before the cameras in the presidential office. Behind her hung the flag of Earth. Beside it, the flags of every human colony. The broadcast would reach over 8 billion humans across dozens of star systems. My fellow humans, she began, her voice steady and clear. 6 days ago, the Galactic Empire captured Commander Kim Tae of the United States Navy. His crime was protecting human children from being taken as slaves. His punishment was death by hanging. The footage of Kim Tae's execution began playing on screens around the world. In homes, in bars, in military bases, in corporate offices, everywhere humans lived and worked, they watched one of their own die for protecting the innocent. The Empire believes this display will make us afraid. They believe we will submit to their authority out of fear. They believe humans are like every other species they control. President Lee. So paused and looked directly into the camera. They are wrong. Around the globe, in underground bunkers and orbital stations, military commanders received new orders. Defense contractors got urgent calls for increased production. Recruitment centers prepared for the flood of volunteers that would come in the morning. The Empire has declared war on human dignity. They have declared war on our children. They have declared war on everything we stand for as a people. Today we declare war back. The broadcast ended with a single image. Commander Kim Tae in his dress uniform, standing at attention with the American flag behind him. Below his picture, simple words in every human language. He died protecting our children. We will not forget. Within hours, the first volunteers began arriving at recruitment centers. The shipyards received emergency funding authorizations. Every human colony began mobilizing their defense forces. The Empire had wanted to send a message with Kim Tae's execution. They had succeeded beyond their worst nightmares. Ambassador Zul stepped off his shuttle at the Seoul spaceport with complete confidence. The tall, blue-skinned alien wore the formal robes of an imperial diplomat. Golden chains across his chest showed his high rank in the Empire's government. He expected to find a world in panic, ready to beg for forgiveness. Instead, he found something else entirely. The first sign was the spaceport itself. Usually, Seoul's main port handled civilian traffic from across the solar system. Today, military transports filled every landing pad. Soldiers in combat gear moved equipment with practiced efficiency. Construction crews worked on new defensive positions around the terminal. Captain Choi Min waited at the shuttle ramp. He wore the dress uniform of a Navy SEAL, the same uniform Kim Tae had worn. On his chest, new medals caught the morning light. Behind him stood an honor guard of 12 soldiers. Ambassador Zul, Choi Min said formally. Welcome to Earth. Zul looked around at the military activity with growing concern. This was not the terrified surrender he had expected. Captain, I come bearing the Empire's terms for peace. Your planet's recent actions have been noted. The Emperor is prepared to be merciful if you submit immediately. Of course, Choi Min replied. President Lee So is waiting to meet with you. If you'll follow me. The drive through Seoul shocked Zul even more than the spaceport. Every street corner had new recruitment posters. Long lines of young people waited outside military offices. Factory districts that once produced consumer goods now displayed signs reading, War Production Facility. The smell of metal and welding filled the air. What is all this? Zul demanded as their transport passed a shipyard where workers labored around the clock. Preparation, Choi Min answered simply. At one intersection, their vehicle stopped for a military convoy. Truck after truck rolled past carrying weapons, supplies, and soldiers. The soldiers looked different from Imperial troops Zul had seen. They moved with purpose, their eyes hard with determination. These were not the beaten, defeated humans he expected to find. The presidential palace showed the same transformation. Security checkpoints that hadn't existed a week ago now controlled every entrance. Military advisors hurried through hallways that once hosted diplomatic parties. In the gardens, communications arrays reached toward the sky like metal trees. President Lee So received them in the Situation Room rather than the formal meeting hall. She wore a simple business suit, but the massive displays behind her showed military deployments across human space. Admiral Park Jin stood beside her chair. His uniform was crisp, his posture straight, his eyes cold as winter. Ambassador Zul, Lee So said without standing. I understand you have terms to offer. Zul activated his translation device. President Lee. So the Emperor recognizes that humans are an emotional species. Your recent outburst over the criminal Kim Tae is understandable but misguided. The Empire offers complete forgiveness if you surrender all military forces immediately and accept imperial oversight of human colonies. Complete forgiveness, Admiral Park Jin repeated slowly. For what crime? For your declaration of war, obviously, Zul replied. For your mobilization of military forces. For your threats against imperial authority. President Lee So smiled, but it was not a friendly expression. Ambassador, I think you misunderstand our position. We haven't committed any crime. We've responded to one. The execution of Kim Tae was a legal proceeding under imperial law, Zul insisted. Under imperial law, Lee So agreed. Not under human law. Not under any law that recognizes the protection of children as a virtue rather than a crime. Admiral Park Jin activated one of the wall displays. Ambassador, let me show you what we've accomplished in the past month. The screen showed production statistics. Shipbuilding numbers that had tripled in 30 days. Weapon production that had increased by 500%. Military recruitment that had filled training camps across every continent. Impressive numbers, Zul said dismissively. But quantity cannot overcome the Empire's technological superiority. You have 43 shipyards. The Empire has over 4,000. You have one star system. The Empire controls 8,000. True, Admiral Park Jin acknowledged, but you're missing something important in those numbers. Which is? Motivation. Park Jin changed the display to show recruitment statistics. Do you know what happened after we broadcast Kim Tae's execution? Every recruitment center on Earth had lines around the block. Men and women who had completed their military service came back to volunteer for active duty. Teenagers lied about their age to enlist early. Grandparents demanded to serve in support roles. Zul looked at the numbers with growing unease. Emotional responses. They will fade when faced with real imperial power. President Lee. So stood up for the first time. Ambassador, you don't understand humans at all, do you? I understand you well enough. The Empire has dealt with dozens of species like yours. Initially defiant, eventually submissive. It's the natural order. Name one. Admiral Park Jin challenged. One what? One species that fought back after you executed their leader for protecting children. One species that increased recruitment after you tried to intimidate them. One species that turned their entire civilization into a war machine because you threatened their families. Zul was quiet for a moment. In his 3 centuries of diplomatic service, he had never encountered such a situation. Most species negotiated after the first show of imperial force. Those that didn't were quickly conquered and absorbed into the Empire. The Empire has resources you cannot imagine, he finally said. Weapons beyond your comprehension. Allies throughout the galaxy. Good, Liso replied, because we have something you don't, which is 8 billion people who watched you murder a man for protecting children. 8 billion people who know that surrender means slavery for their families. 8 billion people who have decided that death is preferable to submission. Admiral Park Jin activated another display. This one showed messages from human colonies throughout Imperial space. Every settlement had received Earth's declaration. Every community had begun organizing resistance cells. Even in the deepest Imperial territory, humans were preparing to fight. You see, Ambassador, Liso continued, you made a critical error in your planning. You assumed we would react like other species you've conquered. You assumed fear would make us weak. Instead, Admiral Park Jin added, you gave us the one thing we needed most. Which was? Zul asked, though he was beginning to suspect the answer. Unity, Liso said. Before Kim Tae's execution, humans were scattered across dozens of worlds focused on our own local concerns. We were traders, farmers, scientists, soldiers, but we weren't united. You changed that. You gave us a martyr, Admiral Park Jin explained. You gave us a symbol. You gave us a reason to put aside every difference and focus on a single goal. Which is? Zul asked again, though his voice was quieter now. President Lee. So walked to the window overlooking Seoul. In the distance, the massive shipyards worked day and night building humanity's fleet. Closer, training facilities prepared soldiers for battles across the galaxy. Everywhere humans worked with a purpose that Zul was finally beginning to understand. Justice for Kim Tae, she said simply, and freedom for every human family in Imperial space. The Emperor will never accept your terms, Zul warned. We're not offering terms, Admiral Park Jin replied. We're offering a choice. Release every human in Imperial custody, grant independence to every human colony, and pay reparations for Kim Tae's murder. And if the Emperor refuses, President Lee so turned back to face the ambassador. Then we'll take what we want by force. Zul left Earth that same day. His report to the Imperial capital was brief but urgent. The humans were not behaving according to any known pattern. They showed no fear, no willingness to negotiate, no recognition of Imperial superiority. They were preparing for total war. 3 days later, Emperor Cax read Zul's report in his throne room. The massive chamber had walls decorated with the flags of conquered worlds. Thousands of species had surrendered in this room over the centuries. Mobilize the fleet, he ordered. If the humans want war, we'll give them annihilation. But in the depths of space, human ships were already moving toward their first targets. The war that would reshape the galaxy had begun. Captain Choi Min stood on the bridge of the ship Tae's Justice, watching the enemy convoy through the main display. 6 months of preparation had led to this moment. 6 months of training, building, and planning. Now it was time to show the Empire what humans could do when they fought for their families. The convoy consisted of 12 Imperial ships, 10 were cargo vessels carrying captured humans from raids across the sector. 2 were military escorts with enough firepower to destroy a small moon. By Imperial standards, it was a routine prisoner transport. By human standards, it was a rescue mission. "Contact from the Lee Kuan Yew," reported Lieutenant Park, the communications officer. "Captain Yang reports his ships are in position." Choi Min nodded. The human fleet had spread out across the convoy's path like a spider's web. 15 ships converted from civilian transports now carried weapons designed specifically to fight Imperial technology. Each ship was crewed by volunteers who had lost family members to Imperial raiders. "Signal from the Jin Wu," Park continued. "Commander Bay confirms the escape pods are ready." This was the part of the plan that made Choi Min proud to be human. While Imperial forces focused on destroying enemies, humans focused on saving lives. Every ship in the fleet carried rescue equipment. Every crew had trained for prisoner recovery operations. Win or lose, they would save as many humans as possible. "Range to target?" Choi Min asked. 50,000 kilometers in closing," replied the navigation officer. Through the view screen, the Imperial convoy looked peaceful enough. The cargo ships were massive, ugly boxes designed for maximum capacity. The escort ships were sleeker, but still followed the Imperial design philosophy of overwhelming firepower over maneuverability. "Sir," Lieutenant Park said quietly, "we're receiving a transmission from the convoy." "Put it through." The main screen flickered and showed the bridge of an Imperial warship. The captain was a reptilian creature similar to Governor Vex, with the same golden scales and cold yellow eyes. When he spoke, his voice carried the authority of someone who had never been challenged. "Unknown vessels, you are approaching an Imperial convoy in violation of space law. Identify yourselves immediately and alter course or face destruction." Choi Min stepped forward where the alien captain could see him clearly. "This is Captain Choi Min of the Earth Defense Force. You are carrying human prisoners taken in violation of interplanetary law. Release them immediately or face the consequences." The Imperial captain's laugh was like grinding metal. "Human prisoners? You mean Imperial property? These beings were lawfully captured during security operations. They will be processed according to Imperial regulations." "They're children," Choi Min said, his voice growing cold. "Some of them are barely 10 years old." "Young workers adapt better to industrial training," the alien replied without emotion. "They will serve the Empire well in the mining operations of Kepler-7. Choi Min felt the anger rise in his chest. These creatures talked about human children like they were equipment to be moved from one job to another. They felt no shame, no recognition that what they were doing was evil. "Last warning," Choi Min said. "Release the prisoners, or what? Your little fleet will attack Imperial vessels? Do you have any idea what the penalty is for such an action?" "Yes," Choi Min replied. "We saw what you did to Commander Kim Tae." The alien captain's expression changed slightly. "Ah, you're the ones causing trouble over that criminal's execution. How touching. Well, you can join him in death. All vessels open fire." The Imperial escorts launched their first volley immediately. Beams of energy lanced through space toward the human ships. But the humans were no longer where the targeting systems expected them to be. "Evasive maneuvers," Choi Min ordered calmly. "Pattern Delta." The human fleet scattered like leaves in the wind. Every ship moved on a different vector, making it impossible for the Imperial targeting computers to track them all. This was something new in the Empire's experience. Most species fled when faced with superior firepower. These ships were moving closer. "Return fire," Choi Min commanded. "Target their weapon systems." The human weapons were different from anything the Empire had seen before. Instead of trying to match Imperial energy weapons, human scientists had developed kinetic projectiles that moved at significant fractions of light speed. The projectiles were small, cheap to manufacture, and nearly impossible to intercept. The first salvo struck the lead escort ship along its weapon arrays. Explosions rippled across the hull as gun turrets and missile launchers were destroyed. The ship was still functional, but its ability to fight back had been severely reduced. "Impossible," the Imperial captain snarled over the open channel. "No primitive species has weapons that can penetrate Imperial armor." "We're not primitive," Choi Min replied as his ship fired again. "We're motivated." The battle that followed was unlike anything in Imperial military history. The human ships moved in coordinated patterns that confused Imperial targeting systems. They attacked in waves, with some ships drawing fire while others struck from unexpected angles. Most importantly, they seemed completely unafraid of death. One human ship, the New Busan Defender, took direct hits from an Imperial energy cannon. Its hull was breached in 3 places, its engines were failing, but it continued to fight. When its main weapons were destroyed, it rammed itself into the side of an Imperial escort, disabling both ships, sir, Lieutenant Park reported. The second escort is launching escape pods. Choi Min watched as the Imperial crew abandoned their ship. In any normal battle, this would be the end. The defeated enemy would retreat and the victors would claim their prize. But this wasn't a normal battle. Attention all ships, Choi Min broadcast to his fleet. Rescue operations begin immediately. Every human prisoner is priority 1. Every Imperial crew member who surrenders will be treated according to human military law. This was what separated humans from their enemies. The Empire saw surrendering crews as weakness to be exploited. Humans saw them as people who deserved to live. Even after everything the Empire had done, human forces would not become monsters to fight monsters. The rescue operation took 6 hours. Cargo ship after cargo ship was opened to reveal hundreds of human prisoners in terrible conditions. Families had been separated. Children had been chained in storage compartments designed for cargo. Adults showed signs of torture and starvation, but they were alive. And now they were free. Captain Choi Min personally oversaw the transfer of prisoners to the human ships. One little girl, maybe 8 years old, grabbed his hand as she was helped aboard. "Are you here to take us home?" she asked in Korean. "Yes," Choi Min replied, kneeling down to her level. "We're taking everyone home. My daddy said human soldiers would come for us. He said they always come for their families." Choi Min felt tears in his eyes. "Your daddy was right." As the last prisoner was transferred, Choi Min stood on his bridge looking at the captured Imperial cargo ships. His orders were clear. No Imperial property was to be taken. No Imperial technology was to be studied. This wasn't about conquest or revenge. "Prepare demolition charges," he ordered. "We're sending a message." The cargo ships exploded in sequence, lighting up the darkness of space. But before they died, each ship transmitted the same signal across Imperial communication networks. A simple message in every language used by the Empire. "This is the Earth Defense Force. We have freed 847 human prisoners from Imperial custody. We are not pirates. We are not terrorists. We are a rescue force. Every human in Imperial space will be brought home. Every Imperial ship carrying human prisoners will be stopped. This is not a threat. This is a promise." The message included footage of the rescued prisoners, children reunited with their parents, families holding each other after months of separation, humans caring for wounded Imperial survivors with the same attention they gave their own people. Word of the battle spread quickly through Imperial space. For the first time in centuries, an Imperial convoy had been defeated not by superior firepower, but by superior motivation. The humans had fought not for territory or resources, but for their people. More importantly, other species throughout the Empire began to ask questions. If humans could rescue their prisoners, why couldn't other species do the same? If the Empire could be defeated by converted cargo ships, how strong was Imperial power really? In his palace on the Imperial capital, Emperor Cax read the battle reports with growing anger. The humans had not simply defeated his forces, they had humiliated them. They had shown the entire galaxy that Imperial ships could be destroyed by beings the Empire considered barely civilized. "Double the convoy escorts," he ordered. "Triple them if necessary. And put a bounty on this Choi Min. I want his head." But in human space, Captain Choi Min was preparing for his next mission. The convoy battle had been a test of human capabilities against Imperial forces. The test had been passed with flying colors. Now it was time to bring the war to the Empire's doorstep. The rescued prisoners were taken to a secure facility on Luna, where they could recover from their imprisonment. Many had information about Imperial operations, prison locations, and military deployments. All of it was carefully recorded by human intelligence services. Among the rescued was an elderly man named Dr. Lee Ho, a scientist who had been captured during a raid on his research station. Admiral Park Jin stood in the war room beneath Seoul, studying the holographic display of Titan Station. The massive Imperial stronghold hung in space like a metal moon, bristling with weapons and shield generators. For 2 centuries it had been considered impregnable. Today that reputation would be tested. "Final intelligence report," Admiral Park Jin ordered. Captain Nam activated her datapad. Titan Station has a garrison of 50,000 Imperial troops from 12 different species. Its shields can withstand direct bombardment from a battle fleet. It controls the hyperspace routes to 37 star systems, including 15 human colonies. Defenses? 400 gun turrets, orbital minefields, and a patrol fleet of 60 warships. Any conventional assault would require losses we can't afford. Admiral Park Jin nodded. Dr. Lee Ho's information had been invaluable, but it would only work if they could get close enough to use it. The old scientist sat in the corner of the room, still weak from his imprisonment but determined to help. Doctor, explained the shield vulnerability one more time. Dr. Lee Ho stood slowly. Imperial shields work by creating multiple energy layers. Each layer is designed to stop different types of attacks, but they all depend on a central control system located in the station's core. And your device. It sends a signal that makes the control system think the shields are overloading. The automatic safety systems shut down the entire network for exactly 4 minutes and 37 seconds before they reset. That's not very long, Captain Nam observed. It's long enough, Admiral Park Jin replied. Captain Choi Min, what's the status of your assault force? On the main screen, Choi Min appeared from the bridge of Tae's Justice. Behind him, the stars showed he was already in hyperspace, leading a fleet toward Titan Station. All ships report ready, Admiral. We have 24 assault vessels and 43 support craft. Every crew member has volunteered for this mission. Casualties? Park Jin asked quietly. Choi Min's expression grew serious. We estimate 70% losses if the plan works perfectly. Higher if it doesn't. The room fell silent. 70% meant that most of the brave people flying toward Titan Station would not be coming home. They knew this. They had volunteered anyway. Sir, Captain Nam said softly, we could wait for more ships. Build a larger fleet. No, Admiral Park Jin replied. Every day we wait, more humans die in Imperial prisons. Every day we delay, the Empire grows stronger. This ends now. 8 hours later, Captain Choi Min watched Titan Station grow larger on his display. The massive structure was even more intimidating up close. Its weapons could destroy his entire fleet before they got within firing range. But that wasn't the plan. All ships, this is Choi Min. Remember, we're not here to destroy the station. We're here to take it. There are human prisoners aboard, and possibly other species who can be saved. Fight hard, but fight smart. Around him, his bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency. These were the best people humanity had to offer. Many were veterans of the convoy battles. Others were new recruits who had joined after seeing the rescued. Prisoners return home. Signal from the Kim. Tae, reported Lieutenant Park. Captain Yang says his diversion force is in position. The first part of the plan was simple misdirection. Half the human fleet would attack the station's outer defenses, drawing attention away from the main assault. It was dangerous work, but every captain had volunteered for the most dangerous assignments. Begin Phase 1. Choi Min ordered. 20 ships broke off from the main formation and began their attack on Titan Station's outer defenses. Imperial sensors immediately detected them and began tracking their approach. Alarm signals echoed through the station as its commander prepared to repel what looked like a desperate assault. Governor Wrath was the Imperial commander of Titan Station. He was a massive creature with thick armor plating instead of skin and 4 eyes that could track multiple targets at once. In his 50 years of military service, he had never lost a battle. Pathetic, he growled as he watched the human ships approach. 20 primitive vessels against the most heavily defended station in the sector. They're committing suicide. Sir, his aide reported. The human ships are broadcasting a message. Put it through. The main screen showed Captain Yang on the bridge of the Kim Tae. The human officer looked directly at Governor Wrath with eyes full of controlled anger. Governor Wrath, this is the Earth Defense Force. We demand the immediate release of all human prisoners on Titan Station. You have 10 minutes to comply. Governor Wrath's laugh shook the command center. Human, you are outnumbered 30-1. Your ships are inferior to our smallest patrol craft. What makes you think you can threaten this station? We're not threatening you, Yang replied calmly. We're giving you a chance to surrender before we take the station by force. Take this station? Impossible. Our shields alone could withstand your entire fleet. We'll see about that. The human ships opened fire with their kinetic weapons, but their shots bounced harmlessly off Titan Station's shields. Governor Wrath watched with satisfaction as his own guns began returning fire. The first human ship exploded within minutes. What he didn't notice was the small shuttle that launched from the dying ship before it was destroyed. The shuttle was too small for the station's sensors to track, especially during a battle. It drifted toward the station like debris, powered down and invisible. Inside the shuttle, Dr. Lee Ho worked frantically to prepare his shield disruptor. 2 minutes to optimal position, he reported to Captain Choi Min over a secure channel. Understood, Doctor. Phase 2 begins in 60 seconds. The real assault force had been hiding behind Titan Station's largest moon, waiting for their moment. Now they emerged from concealment and accelerated toward the station at maximum speed. They would have only one chance. All ships, this is Choi Min. When those shields go down, every shot has to count. Remember what they did to Kim Tae. Remember the prisoners we rescued. Make this count. On Titan Station, Governor Rath was enjoying his easy victory when one of his technicians shouted an alarm. Sir, massive shield fluctuation detected. What kind of fluctuation? I don't know, sir. The system says we're about to overload, but that's impossible. We're not under heavy attack. Governor Rath turned to look at the battle display. The humans were still firing their pathetic weapons at his shields. There was no way they could cause an overload. Unless, check for infiltration devices, he ordered. Someone is sabotaging our systems. But it was too late. Dr. Lee Ho activated his device just as his shuttle reached the optimal position. Across Titan Station, shield generators began shutting down automatically as safety systems tried to prevent what they thought was a catastrophic overload. Shields down, the technician reported in shock. Through his view screen, Governor Rath watched the second human fleet emerge from behind the moon. These weren't the converted cargo ships from the first attack. These were purpose-built warships armed with the most advanced weapons humanity could produce. All guns open fire, Rath screamed. Destroy them before they reach us. But the human ships were already firing. Kinetic projectiles slammed into the station's hull where the shields had been. Explosions rippled across the massive structure as gun turrets and communications arrays were systematically destroyed. Captain Choi Min guided Tae's Justice toward Titan Station's main docking bay. Around him, his fleet was taking terrible losses from the station's remaining weapons. 3 ships had already been destroyed and more were badly damaged, but they were winning. Boarding parties prepare for assault, Choi Min ordered. Remember, prisoners first, military objectives second. The human ships that reached Titan Station didn't try to destroy it. Instead, they latched onto its hull like metal parasites and began cutting through the armor. Within minutes, human soldiers were fighting through the station's corridors. The battle inside Titan Station was brutal but brief. Imperial troops had never faced an enemy that fought with such determination. These humans didn't retreat when wounded. They didn't surrender when surrounded. They fought until they won or until they died. Governor Rath made his last stand in the command center, surrounded by his remaining guards. When the doors finally burst open, Captain Choi Min walked through the smoke with a squad of Marines behind him. Governor Rath, Choi Min said formally, this station is now under the control of the Earth Defense Force. Order your remaining troops to surrender. Rath looked around at his destroyed command center. Half his staff was dead, the other half was injured or hiding. Through the viewports, he could see human ships patrolling around his station. How? He asked simply. We had help, Choi Min replied. From one of your former prisoners. Dr. Lee Ho sends his regards. The news of Titan Station's capture reached Earth within hours. For the first time since the war began, humanity had taken and held Imperial territory. More importantly, they had rescued over 3,000 prisoners of various species from the station's detention levels. But the real impact was on other species throughout the Empire. If humans could capture Titan Station, what else could they do? More importantly, if humans were willing to fight and die to free prisoners, maybe resistance was possible after all. On 17 worlds, uprisings began within days of the battle. Species that had been enslaved for centuries suddenly found the courage to fight back. They had seen what humans could accomplish, and they wanted the same freedom for themselves. Emperor Cax read the reports in his throne room with growing fury. Not only had the humans humiliated his forces again, they had started a rebellion that was spreading across the Empire like a plague. Marshal Vok, he ordered, mobilize the Imperial fleet, all of it. I want these humans crushed before they can cause any more damage. Marshal Vok was the Emperor's most trusted military commander. He was a cybernetic being, more machine than organic, with tactical computers for a brain and weapon systems built into his body. Your Majesty, the humans have only captured one station. Surely a smaller force would suffice. No, Emperor Cax replied. These creatures have proven they cannot be underestimated. I want overwhelming force. I want them destroyed so completely that no other species will ever dare to follow their example. But on Earth, Admiral Park Jin was already planning the next phase of humanity's campaign. Titan Station was just the beginning. Now that they had a foothold in Imperial space, they could begin the real work of liberation. Captain Nam, he ordered, signal all human colonies. Tell them Titan Station is free. Tell them we're coming for the rest of them. Yes, sir. Any other orders? Admiral Park Jin looked at the display showing human ships spreading out from Titan Station to attack other Imperial facilities. Each ship carried the same message that had started this war. Each crew was fighting for the same principle that Kim Tae had died for. Tell them Commander Kim Tae has been avenged, he said quietly. And tell them this is just the beginning. 2 years had passed since Commander Kim Tae's execution. 2 years since humanity had declared war on the Galactic Empire. Now Admiral Park Jin stood on the bridge of the flagship Soul's Pride, watching the Imperial capital world grow larger on the main display. Behind him, the largest fleet in human history stretched across space like a metal constellation. 800 ships carried the hopes and dreams of every human colony that had suffered under Imperial rule. But they weren't alone anymore. Signal from the Liberation Alliance, reported Captain Nam. Fleet Admiral Zax confirms all alien forces are in position. The Liberation Alliance had grown from the ashes of Imperial cruelty. Dozens of species that had been enslaved, conquered, or oppressed had joined humanity's cause. They brought their own ships, their own warriors, and their own burning desire for freedom. Any word from the infiltration teams? Park Jin asked. Captain Choi Min reports his forces have secured the prisoner compounds on the capital's third moon. They've rescued over 15,000 beings of various species. Minimal casualties. Park Jin nodded with satisfaction. Even here, at the end of everything, humanity's priority remained the same. Save lives first, win battles second. It was a philosophy that had earned them allies across the galaxy. On the Imperial capital, Emperor Cax stood in his throne room watching the approaching fleet through massive viewing windows. The sight should have been terrifying. Instead, he felt only rage. Rage at the humans who had destroyed his empire. Rage at the alien species who had betrayed their Imperial masters. Rage at his own commanders who had failed him repeatedly. Your Majesty, Marshal Vok reported, his mechanical voice devoid of emotion. The defensive fleet is ready. We still outnumber the enemy 3-1. Numbers mean nothing, Emperor Cax snarled. These creatures have proven that repeatedly. What about the special weapon? Ready for deployment. One shot will destroy their entire fleet. Emperor Cax smiled for the first time in months. The special weapon was Imperial science at its most advanced. A planet killer that could destroy an entire star system if necessary. The humans had shown they were too dangerous to be allowed to survive. Today their species would be extinct. Aboard Soul's Pride, Admiral Park Jin received a priority transmission from Earth. President Lee So appeared on the main screen, looking older than when the war had started, but with the same determination in her eyes. Admiral, the Senate has voted unanimously. You are authorized to accept the Emperor's surrender if he offers it. But make no mistake, this war ends today one way or another. Understood, Madam President. Any restrictions on our methods? The same as always. Minimum civilian casualties. Protection of prisoners. No revenge killings. We are not the Empire. We don't sink to their level. Yes, ma'am. Park Jin out. As the transmission ended, Admiral Park Jin reflected on how much had changed since Kim Tae's death. The young SEAL commander had died believing his sacrifice would mean something. He had been right beyond his wildest imagination. Sir, Captain Nam reported, we're receiving a transmission from the Imperial Palace. Put it through. Emperor Cax appeared on the main screen, seated on his golden throne. Even facing defeat, he maintained the arrogance that had defined his reign. Behind him stood Governor Vex, the creature who had ordered Kim Tae's execution. Admiral Park Jin, Emperor Cax began, I offer you this final chance to preserve your species. Withdraw your fleet immediately and I will grant humanity a swift, painless extinction. Counteroffer, Park Jin replied calmly. Surrender unconditionally. Release all prisoners. Grant independence to every world in your empire. Face trial for crimes against sentient beings. The Emperor's laugh was cold and bitter. You think you've won because you captured a few border stations? This is the Imperial capital. We have defenses you cannot imagine. We'll take our chances. So be it. Marshal Vok, deploy the special weapon. Admiral Park Jin watched as a massive station emerged from behind the capital world. It was larger than anything the humans had ever seen, bristling with weapons and energy collectors. At its center, a glowing core pulsed with barely contained power. Energy readings off the scale, reported the science officer. Sir, that thing could destroy our entire fleet with one shot. All ships evasive maneuvers, Park Jin ordered. Scatter formation. Don't give them one target. But as the human fleet began to spread out, something unexpected happened. The massive weapon station suddenly went dark. Its energy readings dropped to 0. Its weapons powered down. What happened? Emperor Cax demanded. Marshal Vok checked his instruments frantically. Sir, the station's main computer has been compromised. Someone is accessing our systems from the inside. On the main screen, a familiar face appeared. Dr. Li Ho sat in what looked like the weapon station's control room, his fingers dancing across alien keyboards. Hello, Your Majesty, the old scientist said politely. Dr. Li Ho, former prisoner 8847. You might remember me. You had me tortured for information about human technology. Impossible, the Emperor snarled. You're dead. We executed you months ago. You executed someone, Dr. Li Ho agreed. But it wasn't me. Captain Choi Min rescued me during the Titan Station operation. Since then, I've been studying your technology very carefully. Did you know your weapons have a fatal flaw? Kill him, Emperor Cax ordered. Send troops to the weapon station immediately. Too late, Dr. Li Ho replied. I've already uploaded a virus to your entire defense network. Every weapon, every shield, every system is now under human control. Oh, and Your Majesty? This is for Commander Kim Tae. Across the Imperial capital, defense systems began shutting down one by one. Orbital platforms went dark. Planetary shields collapsed. The mighty Imperial fleet found their own weapons turning against them. Attention, Imperial forces. Admiral Park Jin broadcast on all frequencies. This is Admiral Park Jin of the Earth Defense Force. Your defenses have been neutralized. Your weapons are offline. Surrender now and you will be treated with dignity. Continue fighting and face the consequences. The battle that followed was unlike anything in galactic history. Imperial ships tried to fight with backup systems and emergency weapons. Human forces responded with overwhelming firepower, but always gave their enemies chances to surrender. Captain Choi Min led the assault on the Imperial Palace itself. His Marines fought through corridors lined with the flags of conquered worlds. Each flag represented a species that had been enslaved or destroyed by Imperial ambition. Emperor Cax made his final stand in the throne room where he had ruled for 3 centuries. When the doors burst open, he was still seated on his golden throne, refusing to acknowledge defeat. Emperor Cax, Captain Choi Min said formally, by the authority of the Liberation Alliance, I place you under arrest for crimes against sentient beings. I am the Emperor, Cax replied with wounded dignity. I do not recognize your authority. You don't have to, Choi Min replied. Governor Vex, you are also under arrest for the murder of Commander Kim Tae. Governor Vex tried to run, but human soldiers blocked every exit. The creature who had ordered Kim Tae's execution was dragged away in chains, his arrogance finally broken. 6 months later, the trials began on Titan Station, now converted into a court of justice. Representatives from every liberated species served as judges. The proceedings were broadcast across the galaxy, so that everyone could see justice being done. Governor Vex was the first to face judgment. He sat in a simple chair where once he had sat in luxury, passing sentence on innocent beings. The evidence against him was overwhelming. Videos of executions, records of slave operations, testimony from thousands of survivors. Governor Vex, the chief judge announced, you have been found guilty of crimes against sentient beings. Vex looked around the courtroom desperately. But the humans execute their enemies. I saw them kill Imperial soldiers in battle. We kill in battle when we have no choice, Captain Choi Min replied from the witness stand. We don't execute prisoners for protecting children. That's the difference between us and you. Emperor Cax's trial lasted longer, but the outcome was never in doubt. 3 centuries of oppression had left too much evidence. Too many victims, too many destroyed worlds. Cax, former emperor of the dissolved Galactic Empire, the chief judge declared, "You have been found guilty of genocide, enslavement, and crimes against sentient beings. The sentence is life imprisonment on a penal colony, where you will spend your remaining years performing useful labor for the beings you once oppressed." The old emperor was led away in chains, his empire nothing but a memory. A year after the trials, Admiral Park Jin stood in Arlington National Cemetery on Earth. A new monument had been erected there, listing the names of every human who had died in the Liberation War. At the top of the list, carved in black marble, was one name: Commander Kim Tae. President Lee so joined him at the memorial. She carried a wreath of flowers and a medal in a small wooden box. "The Medal of Honor," she said quietly, "awarded posthumously to Commander Kim Tae for extraordinary heroism in the defense of human lives." Park Jin took the medal and placed it at the base of the monument. He never knew what he started. He just knew he had to protect those children. "That's what makes him a hero," Lee So replied. "He didn't calculate the odds or plan for glory. He just did what was right." Around them, families of the fallen placed their own flowers and mementos. Children who had been rescued from imperial prisons played in the grass nearby, free to grow up in a galaxy where slavery was illegal and protecting the innocent was considered the highest virtue. "Admiral," President Lee So said as they prepared to leave, "the new Galactic Council has voted to establish an annual Remembrance Day. They want to call it Kim Tae Day, in honor of the man whose sacrifice started the liberation." Park Jin smiled sadly. He would have hated the attention. He always said he was just doing his job. Maybe that's the point. Sometimes doing your job, doing what's right, can change the entire galaxy. As they walked away from the memorial, neither of them noticed the small group of children who approached the monument. They were from different species, different worlds, different backgrounds, but they all had one thing in common. They were alive and free because a human soldier had refused to let evil triumph. One of the children, a young girl from New Busan, read the inscription aloud. "Commander Kim Tae, he died so that others might live free. My grandmother says he was the bravest man who ever lived." Another child said, "My father says he saved the whole galaxy," added a third. As the children placed their own small flowers at the memorial, the inscription seemed to glow in the afternoon sunlight. Simple words that had sparked a revolution. Words that had brought freedom to billions of beings across the stars. Words that would be remembered as long as sentient beings valued courage over comfort and justice over submission. In the end, the Galactic Empire had been right about one thing. They had no idea what they started when they hanged Commander Kim Tae. They had started their own destruction, and they had started humanity's greatest victory. 5 years after the fall of the Galactic Empire, Captain Choi Min walked through the corridors of New Titan Station. The former Imperial stronghold had been transformed into the headquarters of the Galactic Liberation Council. Where once prisoners had been tortured, now representatives from hundreds of worlds worked together to build a better future. Choi Min was older now, his hair showing gray at the temples. The war had aged all of them, but it had also given them something precious: hope. The galaxy was free, and it would stay that way as long as people remembered the lessons learned in blood and sacrifice. He stopped at a familiar door marked Memorial Archives. Inside, Dr. Lee Ho worked quietly at a desk covered with data pads and historical documents. The old scientist had dedicated his remaining years to recording the stories of everyone who had fought for freedom. "Doctor," Choi Min said as he entered, "how is the project coming?" Dr. Lee Ho looked up with tired but satisfied eyes. "Almost finished, Captain. 50,000 individual stories from the Liberation War. Every soldier, every civilian, every alien who joined our cause. But I saved the most important story for last." He gestured to a display showing a familiar face. Commander Kim Tae smiled out from his official Navy photograph, young and confident in his dress uniform. "His story is different from the others," Dr. Lee Ho continued. "The others chose to fight after they saw what was possible. Kim Tae chose to fight when it seemed impossible. He died believing he was just protecting one small colony. He never knew he was starting a revolution." Choi Min sat down across from the old scientist. "Sometimes I wonder what he would think of everything that's happened. The trials, the new government, the peace treaties. I think he would be proud that we kept our principles, Dr. Lee Ho replied. We could have become like them, you know. We had the power to enslave our former enemies, to rule through fear and force. Instead, we chose justice. It wasn't always easy. No, but it was always right. That's what Kim Tae taught us. Sometimes the right choice is also the hard choice. Dr. Lee Ho activated another display showing current news from across the galaxy. Former imperial worlds were rebuilding their societies as free democracies. Species that had been enemies for centuries were working together on trade agreements and cultural exchanges. Children who had grown up as slaves were now attending universities on a dozen different worlds. The liberation didn't end with the Empire's defeat, Dr. Lee Ho observed. It's still happening every day as people learn what freedom really means. Choi Min nodded. Admiral Park Jin always said that winning the war was only the first step. Building the peace would take much longer. Through the window, they could see ships arriving and departing from the station. Some carried diplomats working on new treaties. Others brought supplies to worlds still recovering from imperial rule. A few were exploration vessels, mapping new regions of space that had been forbidden under the old regime. Captain, Dr. Lee Ho said quietly, there's something I need to tell you. Something I've never told anyone else. Choi Min waited. I knew Kim Tae before he was captured. We served together briefly on a diplomatic mission to the Centauri colonies. He was just a lieutenant then, but even then you could see what kind of man he was. What do you mean? There was an incident. Pirates had attacked a civilian transport. Most of the escort ships wanted to pursue the attackers, leave the damaged transport to fend for itself. Kim Tae argued for staying to help the civilians. He was overruled by the senior officers. Dr. Lee Ho's voice grew distant with memory. That night he came to see me. He said something I've never forgotten. He said, Doctor, the day we stop protecting innocent people is the day we stop being human. Choi Min felt a chill down his spine. Those words could have been Kim Tae's epitaph. He lived by that principle his entire life, Dr. Lee Ho continued. Even when it cost him everything. A soft chime indicated someone was requesting entry. Dr. Lee Ho activated the door controls, and Admiral Park Jin stepped into the archive room. He looked as tired as the rest of them, but his bearing was still proud and strong. Admiral, Choi Min said, standing out of respect. Please, Captain, we're all civilians now. Just Park Jin will do. The former admiral smiled. I'm here for the dedication ceremony. Are you ready, Doctor? Dr. Lee Ho gathered his data pads. Everything is prepared. The memorial will include every name, every story, every sacrifice. Future generations will know what their freedom cost. The three men walked together to the station's central plaza, where thousands of beings had gathered for the ceremony. Representatives from every liberated world stood together in a display of unity that would have been impossible under the Empire. At the center of the plaza stood a new monument. Unlike the grand statues the Empire had built to glorify conquest, this was simple and dignified. A black wall inscribed with names surrounding an eternal flame that would burn as long as the station existed. President Lee So stood at a podium before the monument. She was retired from politics now, but she had insisted on speaking at this ceremony. Her words would be broadcast to every world in the former empire. 5 years ago, she began, a single man made a choice that changed the galaxy. Commander Kim Tae chose to protect innocent children, rather than follow orders that would have condemned them to slavery. His choice cost him his life, but it gave birth to a movement that freed billions. The crowd was silent, respectful. Many were survivors of imperial oppression. Others were the children and grandchildren of those who had fought in the Liberation War. Today we dedicate this memorial not just to Commander Kim Tae, but to everyone who chose courage over comfort, justice over safety, hope over despair. Their names are carved in stone, but their legacy is carved in the hearts of free beings across the galaxy. She paused and looked directly at the camera that would carry her words across space. To those who will come after us, remember this. Freedom is not a gift that can be given. It is a choice that must be made again and again by each generation. The price of liberty is eternal vigilance, and the courage to stand up for what is right, even when the odds seem impossible. The ceremony concluded with a moment of silence for all who had died in the fight for freedom. As the crowd began to disperse, Choi Min noticed a group of young people approaching the monument. They were cadets from the new Galactic Defense Academy, students from different species learning to work together. One of them, A young human woman with lieutenant's insignia stepped forward and saluted the monument with perfect military precision. Then she spoke in a clear, strong voice. "Commander Kim Tae, sir. Lieutenant Sarah Kim reporting. I'm named after you, sir. My parents were among the colonists you saved on New Busan. They wanted me to know that your sacrifice mattered, that it meant something, that it changed everything." She placed a small bouquet of flowers at the base of the monument, then stepped back and saluted again. "We won't forget, sir. We won't let anyone forget." As the cadets moved away, Choi Min found himself alone with the memorial. He read the inscription one more time. "To those who chose to stand when they could have knelt, to fight when they could have fled, to die when they could have lived as slaves. Their courage lights the way for all who follow." Behind him, footsteps approached. Dr. Lee Ho joined him at the monument. "Do you think it will last?" the old scientist asked. "The peace, the freedom, the unity?" Choi Min thought about the question seriously. "Not without effort. Every generation will face the same choice Kim Tae faced. The choice between safety and righteousness, between comfort and courage. And if they choose wrong, then we'll have failed them. We'll have failed to teach them what freedom really costs." Dr. Lee Ho nodded slowly. "That's why we tell these stories, and that's why we build these monuments. Not to glorify war, but to remember why some things are worth fighting for." As night fell over New Titan Station, the eternal flame continued to burn. In its light, the names of the fallen seemed to glow with their own inner fire. Names from every species, every world, every walk of life, all united by their refusal to accept injustice. And at the top of the list, carved deeper than all the rest, one name stood alone. Commander Kim Tae, United States Navy SEAL. He died so others might live free. Somewhere in the galaxy, a child read that name for the first time and asked what it meant. Somewhere else, a young adult chose to enlist in the defense forces rather than pursue a safer career. Somewhere else still, a politician chose to vote for justice rather than convenience. The legacy lived on. The choice continued to be made. And in the depths of space, among the stars that had once trembled under imperial tyranny, freedom shone like a beacon for all who dared to dream of something better. Commander Kim Tae had been right in his final words. The Empire truly had no idea what they had started. They had started their own end. And they had started humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy, the knowledge that no tyranny is too powerful to resist, and no sacrifice too great for freedom. The war was over. The legacy would last forever.